And we're going to do roll call. And I'm not going to start at the top of the alphabet. Since it's February, I'm going to start with the F's. Then we'll go through to A's just to kind of throw everybody off. So, and see who's late and on time. So we'll start Farmington. Anyone got here from Farmington?
Lyle Gibson here with Farmington City.
Far West. Fruit Heights. Harrisville. Hill Air Force Base. Hooper. Kaysville. Layton.
Cindy Hunt Baker from Layton.
And Joellen Grandy from Layton.
West Zaplow for Layton.
Marriott Slaterville. Mida. North Ogden.
I'm here. Mida's here.
Okay.
Ariana Harbor.
North
Ryan
Salt.
with North Ogden is here.
Okay. North Salt Lake. I know we got North Salt Lake.
Ray Pace and Allie and Mackenzie are both here from North Salt Lake.
And I'm Barton Brierley from Ogden, and we've also got a couple others.
I'm Brandon from Ogden.
Joe Simpson from Ogden.
Mira from Ogden.
Brandon Bell from Pleasant View.
Perry. Plain City. Got we got Pleasant View, Riverdale. Roy.
Steve Parkinson with Roy.
South Ogden. South Weber. Sunset. Syracuse. Uinta. Washington Terrace. Weber County.
Rick Grover, Weaver County.
West Bountiful. West Haven. West Point. Willard. Woods Cross.
Here.
UDOT.
Jay
UTA.
Aguilar
Okay, go
from
ahead.
UDOT.
From UTA.
Living on CTA.
Michelle Larson, ETA.
FHWA. But WFRC.
I'll do WFRC's people. We've got Jory Johnner, Julie Bjornstad, Hugh Van Wagenen, Che Mosqueda, Miranda Jones Cox, Lily Hernandez, Jordan Chandler, Madison Avilas, Marshall White, Nate Curry. I think that's it.
We'll claim Marshall White too.
Ted Knowlton just joined as well.
Thanks, Barton. I appreciate that.
Okay, back up to the top of the alphabet. Bountiful. Fox Elder County.
Security training?
Security awareness.
Bragg. Brigham City.
Yo.
Centerville.
Mike Agate with Centerville City.
Clearfield,
Tyson Stoddard with Clearfield.
And
Clinton.
Brandon Fields with Clearfield.
oh, good, thank you. Clinton? Davis County? Okay, that's the end of my modified alphabet. So we have the minutes of December 6th, 2023. Have a motion to approve those minutes or to amend?
So moved.
For second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All right. This is the way we vote. All in favor, be quiet. Any opposed, speak up. All right, great, thank you. So we're gonna get to our local community highlight and just a word of warning. So we can't leave the meeting until somebody volunteers to do the community highlight in our next meeting. So think about if you would like to share something that's going on in your community. And hopefully we'll get a volunteer before the end of the meeting here. Otherwise, we'll just keep staring at each other until someone volunteers. So Paul Larson from Brigham City volunteered to share something about his community. So floor is yours.
Thank you. Before I start, just tell me how long I have so I know how fast I should breeze through these slides.
10 minutes max.
Okay, all right. I will attempt that. You know, if you can see this screen, okay?
Yep.
All right. So probably first thing on the list is we've just signed a contract to update our general plan. We last updated it in 2017. As you're all aware, there's been a number of changes to the Utah code and mandates that have come down regarding planning, but also just it's time to update the plan given some of the changes and trends that we've seen here locally. So some of the highlights of what our plan will focus on: transportation, downtown revitalization, some of our annexation areas, particularly the west side of I-15, the inland port, and gravel pits, even though, well, we'll get into that. We have for Brigham City, I think what we're seeing right now is a housing boom. It may be something that in larger communities may be more of a boomlet, but to us it's pretty significant. We've got housing happening. There's two slides here that are some the townhouses that are being built on what was previously a golf course that's been vacant for over 20 years ago. It was closed down as a golf course. The other site down in the lower right-hand corner is where we previously had a Shopco building. Shopco went dark when they closed nationwide, and that building sat for a number of years. It was picked up by a developer. We worked with them on a planned district zone for that property, and it's currently under construction as an apartment project that will have, I believe my recollection is around 160 to 170 units, mixture of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. Water planning with Senate Bill 110 from a couple of years ago, mandating a water use and preservation element that will be incorporated into our general plan to comply with the state code. Transportation is always in flux. We've got a number of issues in Brigham City transportation related that need updates in our general plan. Downtown revitalization has been a priority for Brigham City for quite some time. Utah has joined the National Main Street Program, Main Street America. And Brigham City is a Tier 2 member of the Utah Main Street Program and has achieved affiliate status with Main Street America. Our ultimate goal is to be an accredited community with Main Street America. That will take a number of years to achieve, but downtown is an important component of our planning. We have areas outside of Brigham City that are in our annexation policy plan. There are areas that are actively contemplating annexation in the near future. And we'll be embarking on planning to determine what will be the status of those as they come in. The west side of I-15 is an area that is both, we have portions that have annexed into the city. We have other portions that are within our annexation policy plan. And the questions come up, what do we want that area to look like? And what do the residents want that area to look like over time? There's the Barrow Migratory Bird Refuge, but there's also large tracts of agriculture. We have industrial areas that are part of the inland port. And so it'll be an interesting planning exercise to go through, envisioning the future of that area. This is a slide that shows you the Golden Spike Inland Port project area. There are 6 non-contiguous sites as part of the Golden Spike project area. The jurisdictions are Brigham City, unincorporated Box Elder County, Garland, and Tremont. Within the Brigham City portion of it, we have 3 sites: the Rita Ranch project area or portion. Down here is the one that's most active at the moment. There's also a large project that was announced on the Garland Tremont portion. Gravel pits are a huge issue for Brigham City. They have been for a very long time. As some of you are aware, in 2019, there was a moratorium imposed through HB 288 on what communities can do to plan and enact land use codes related to gravel pits. We're hoping that that will change in time. It's not going to change this year. The bills, so far, we've successfully fought 2 bills that actually would have gone the other direction and made planning for gravel pits even harder to do. The photo on the left is sort of a typical morning in Brigham City. Looking east, you see that haze of dust that gathers over the city. That is part of our legacy. And I like to describe gravel pit host communities under the Utah Code as sacrifice communities. It's a little bit of a tongue-in-cheek designation, but it kind of describes how the state legislature likes to treat us. Enough of editorialization. Another big thing going on in Brigham City right now is construction of an overpass. This is the timeline for that overpass. We are currently in kind of somewhere between phase 4 and phase 5. Not much of the project has been obviously visible to the public, but there is considerable work going on. This is Forest Street. It's the interchange that comes into Brigham City from I-15 directly into the center of the city. This is the railroad track or the railroad right-of-way, and Union Pacific operates a switching line switching operation in this area. And as a result of that, we have pretty regular blockage of Forest Street. That blockage can take anywhere from a minute or two up to 45 minutes and even longer at a time. We've had significant instances where the tracks have been blocked for hours at a time. It affects emergency services. It affects our economy. And a couple of years ago, the legislature appropriated money through a newly enacted fuel tax on the railroad. That is, in our community, it's going to construct an overpass that will eliminate the blockage on Forest Street as an issue. This is sort of a cost breakdown. Roughly a $30 million project, and the utility relocation work and construction of some bypass roads is nearly complete. During construction of the overpass, the section in red will be closed entirely, probably for a period of a year or two. And the green represents sort of the detour around that while the construction is going on. These are some illustrations of what the overpass will look like when it's done. Brigham City to the west, and there's our gravel pits. And this is a view looking west toward the I-15 and Great Salt Lake. You can see some of the accesses that are relocated and reconfigured to accommodate the project. Big J Mill is a significant issue for the project, and we've worked with them to configure access in a way that will allow them to continue operating. Some other perspectives and views of the project. Pedestrian access is preserved as part of it. We have our flagship city park just to the north of the project, and we've been able to design this in a way that preserves that park usage. Just some additional views of that. And I'm open for questions if anybody has any at this point.
How much is that bridge costing?
It's the total project is about $30 million. That includes the structure itself. It includes the roads. As you can see here, this is one that's being constructed. There's another one a little harder to see over in this area that was constructed. That includes utility relocations and so on. But yeah,
What's the
roughly.
span of the bridge?
Good question. I should have measured that. It's probably at least 1,000 feet. Span being from where it first takes off to where it lands. The span of the railroad portion is probably 100 feet, roughly one to 200 feet.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Paul. We really appreciate that.
Hey, I had one more question. This is
Okay.
Dave. This is Dave from Farmington. By the way, I was having difficulty. I'm eating my button, so I didn't get in on the roll call. Paul, the trees on your main street, the sycamores. Have you thought about a tree replacement program? Because they're not going to live forever.
Yeah, that's been something that's been discussed over the years. You know, I don't know what your experience has been in Farmington, but there are people periodically who complain about not being able to see around the trees at intersections. Our analysis indicates that the intersections with those trees are actually safer than the intersections without the trees. And it's a little counterintuitive, but I think what you find happening is that people are hyper careful about advancing out into the intersection because they can't see around the tree, so they inch forward until they know that they have a clear path.
Wow.
To answer your question, we have considered over time doing a replacement as these trees die out, replacing them with a sycamore maple, which is a similar looking tree. The ones we've got, just like Farmington, are London plane trees. They're not true sycamores. The sycamore maple is also not a true sycamore, but it's a maple that has a similar look and does not have quite the same effect on sidewalks and curbs.
Interesting. Does that have the same canopy?
Over time, it takes it. They're a long-lived tree. I think our sycamores, as I recall, were planted in about the 1920s, so they're roughly 100 years old.
Wow.
Same with ours.
For the most part, they're fairly healthy. We have lost a few over time. There's been some places where the city allowed the trees to be cut down for development purposes. That does not happen anymore. And in the case of the block between 200 South and 300 South, where the Temple and Tabernacle are located, for some reason they planted those trees much closer to each other when they were planted. And as a result, as they matured, they just didn't have room to spread out. So when the temple was constructed, they approached the city and the Shade Tree Commission about removing about half of those trees. That was finally approved. We were able to fight off the hordes that came with pitchforks and torches. And actually, if you look at those trees now, they look much healthier because the canopy now has room to grow out and expand.
Interesting.
All right, great,
Well,
thank you.
We'd like to steal some ideas from you, just FYI.
Yeah, well, it's probably something that we will consider in the general plan. It was brought up in our last go around, but didn't really cement anything concrete.
Okay, great. All right, so do we have a volunteer for, it'd be April 17th?
I would do it, but I just went.
All right, so we'll come back.
Farmington would love to do it April 17th.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. So that's, your name again was?
Dave Peterson.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that, Dave. All right, so legislative update, is that Ted or is that?
Miranda.
That's
Miranda.
me.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you. So I'll be really brief with this update. What's challenging is there's so much that's been happening here up on Capitol Hill over the past 6 weeks now, and the session has only about 10 days left to finish the work of putting the state budget together, passing, as many as over I think over 800 bills that have been released this session. And so it's hard to really condense so much that has already happened and maybe preface so much of what still is yet to come over the next week or so. But I'm just going to do a few quick hits on some things that might be helpful for this group to be aware of. But I will just say that next week at the end of session, Friday is when the session ends on March 1st. We'll have a better sense of exactly what bills have passed, what's been appropriated, and we'll have a really, I think, helpful, comprehensive summary of everything that came out during the session that's applicable to us and our partners as far as transportation planning and other things go. And so I'll just note that that's something to keep an eye out for in the next week or two. to look for that end of session summary so that you guys know exactly what happened. But to kind of give you like a mid, nearing the end of session, where we're at and exactly what's happening. With the 10 days left to go, the legislature is finalizing their budget. The Executive Appropriations Committee is determining exactly what they're going to fund with the state surplus that is available to them. And so we're likely to see either Friday or on Monday the appropriation ranked lists by the Executive Appropriations Committee of all the one-time funding and ongoing funding requests that have been requested at the legislature. And so we're kind of patiently waiting to see where those budget numbers will be. But the revenue numbers came out last week and indicated that there's just not quite as much money as there have been in years past for the legislature to appropriate. So they've had to reduce down their estimates even for general fund dollars of what was originally anticipated earlier or at the end of last year. And so it's a tighter year for budget. But as far as appropriations go, give me one moment. I'll actually just pull my screen up for everybody. I'm sorry if there's a little bit of background noise. I'm up here on the hill and there's lots of other folks up here on the hill. But so quickly on appropriations, I do want to note one thing that has already been appropriated and then one that we're still waiting on that I think is fairly significant as far as transportation funding goes. So the first is that the legislature appropriated over $1 billion, so $775 million in one-time money, $335 million in ongoing money to the Transportation Investment Fund, the TIF. So the idea with this is, and the legislature has kind of done this in the past several years, put significant amounts of one-time funding to transportation for projects, for additional capacity. And the idea here, and they've had some language around this, is saying this funding could be used to pay for debt service, but if the debt service is paid, it also frees up additional capacity for new projects. And so really UDOT is in a great place with being able to address those capacity and project needs, especially coming off of a few other years of additional one-time surplus going to the transportation program. And then, so again, that piece has already been done. That's already been appropriated. Now, the second piece, the Transit Transportation Investment Fund, is a request out of the governor's budget and from UDOT to get more stable ongoing funding to transit. It would be the original request was 1% of the TIF to be transferred into the TTIF, again, for statewide transit projects. And things are still kind of firming up on this one. Again, like I mentioned, later this week, the beginning of next week, we should have more of a sense of how this is or isn't going to be included in budgets and bills, etc. But again, this idea of multimodal transportation funding is important to WFRC and is one of our priorities this legislative session. I want to touch on a few bills, and I will note that there's at this point, there's probably 8 or 9 or 10 that that are kind of high priority for WFRC that we're watching, that we're involved in. And so I would definitely recommend checking out our bill tracker. But again, as session goes on and we have that comprehensive end of session summary, we'll highlight those core priority bills that have come out of the session. But I wanted to note these 3. The first is Housing and Transit Reinvestment Zone Amendment. So some of you may be familiar with the HTRZ statute or program that is available for tax increment financing around transit stations for developments with affordable housing requirements. And so this bill makes some additional changes to the HTRZ statute. One of them specifically is ensuring that affordability requirement is maintained throughout the life of the HTRZ, and makes another few changes. So I actually have a pretty comprehensive summary on this one that I'll drop into the chat for folks if you're interested in learning more about what's actually being proposed here. HB 449, Pedestrian Safety and Facilities Act modifications. This one is actually a bill that came from our partners at Bike Utah. And the idea here with this bill is that it allows cities and UDOT to not just plan for pedestrian facilities when doing roadway and transportation planning, but now it includes bike facilities in addition to pedestrian planning. So in that broader definition of pedestrian planning, it now includes bicycles. And we're supportive of this as a comprehensive look at planning for bike and pedestrian safety. So that bill is kind of moving throughout the process, maybe a little slower than we'd like, but there's plenty of time for things to go throughout the session in 10 days. So, and then lastly, this bill or this concurrent resolution, while it doesn't seem, concurrent resolutions aren't requiring anything or mandating anything, but I'm kind of referring to this bill as like the Wasatch Choice Vision in like bill form, in that it encourages government, private sector, community partners, etc., to consider cross-issue growth impacts when they're doing their planning, appropriating, policy making, and it basically encourages partners, governments, etc., to look at transportation, but as how transportation also relates to, water and economic development and housing, and make sure that we're approaching growth and approaching decision making with a comprehensive lens in how things coordinate and work together. And so this one's moving through the process. We're excited to see this move forward. This came out of the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, and WFRC was involved in. So just want to note these three. There's a lot of other bills out there that we just unfortunately don't have the time to get through right now, but I'm always happy to answer questions as you have them, or to talk about any bills. Someone on this call, I think, flagged a bill earlier for someone on our team, and it's helpful for us to know if there are things that you guys are concerned about or supportive of, and that way we can take that back to our team, to our partners, and share that as well. So never hesitate to reach out. And then lastly, just want to share the resources that are available. We have our government affairs email list. Each week I'll send out an email sharing what's happened this last week and what we can look forward to in the next week. What are the other bills that we're watching, the appropriations, etc. You can find this on our public involvement tab of our website. We have an appropriations tracker, our bill tracker, and then also on this page you can find our end of session comprehensive summaries that I had mentioned. And so keep an eye out for that after the end of next week. So I'd be happy to answer any questions. There's a lot going on. I'm sorry that we can't really dig into too much of the meat of all of these things, but happy to answer any questions if anyone has them.
All right.
All right. Okay.
Thank you, Miranda. Really appreciate it. I think my observation is this session isn't as bad as most, so that's good. Let's go to the Wasatch Choice Vision and Regional Transportation Plan, and I know we have an action on this, so.
All right, can you see and hear that?
Yes.
That being me. Let's see the screen. All right. A decent sized agenda here, or an agenda item, presenting on the Amendment 1 to the 2023-2050 Regional Transportation Plan. Briefly, we'll review the amendment process, provide a high-level overview of each of the projects in this amendment. Spoiler, there's 36 of them, so hold on tight. I'm going to blast through these. And then I'm going to ask for a recommendation or a motion at the end to take these projects to the Regional Growth Committee in March. So with that, I'm going to jump in and move along quickly. So reminder, the RTP developed on a 4-year cycle. We have a financially constrained plan, conforms to air quality control totals, goals, and budget for mobile sources, and ties to the future land use plans in the Wasatch Choice Vision. The RTP is divided into phases, each of them about a decade long, identifying both when projects are needed and when we expect to have funding available between now and 2050. It's the starting place for projects to move forward to prioritization of federal, state, and local funds. So hopefully we've captured everything in either our last planning process or this amendment, or we'll have a chance moving forward in the 2027 plan. Periodically, adjustments are needed, right? So during our next planning cycle, due to changes like funding availability, local or state needs, or just changes to the land use. The amendment process, you can see on the right there, maintains the rigor of the planning process, including review of our financial constraints, public input, and air quality conformity. And you can see that each of the different levels, and I'll cover those next, have their own process that we review for them. So level 1, staff modifications are include ownership changes, operational changes to roadways, modifications to needs-based phasing, all active transportation changes, and changes to the Wasatch Choice Vision Centers fall within a level 1 staff modification. Level 2 are board modifications. They include collector and minor arterial roadway changes, non-fixed guideway transit projects, and changes to corridor preservation projects. And then finally, there's level 3, which are our full amendments. And these are the larger projects that are more regionally significant, including principal arterials, freeways, fixed guideway transit projects. So as I made mentioned before, there's 36 projects spanning all of the transportation modes and all 3 levels. 12 of them are in level 1 requests from UDOT, local communities, and UTA, made up of 9 active transportation requests and 3 transit project requests. There are 12 level 2 requests from local communities, UTA, UDOT, made up of 9 roadway and 3 transit projects. And I know I'm blasting through this and going quick, so you're not going to be able to read them on the screen, but I'm going to hit each project one by one in a minute here. And then there are 12 level 3 requests from Farmington City, UDOT, and UTA, making up 3 transit projects and 9 roadway projects. So as you can see here on these maps, there are projects spread across the whole region. I'm going to briefly cover the projects on the following slides, and then open up comments for you all after covering these 12 level 1 projects. And then I'll move on to the level 2, open up comment, then level 3. That way you don't have to save a comment for 35 projects if you have a question or a comment on one of these early ones. So with that, Barton, I'll jump into the projects here.
Okay.
So first project, this is a WFRC and UDOT. We had an overlapping project on Weber Canyon, coming down from Morgan, in both our regional transportation plan and the state's long range plan. So we're going to remove this project from our RTP, but the state is keeping it in their long range plan. So this will help with our unified plan map, where we had 2 projects that overlapped and it was just a little confusing. So project's still going to be there. It'll go all the way down from the Mountain Green area all the way to the mouth of Weber Canyon at South Weber. The second project here is a Porter Lane bike lane update. So we're modifying the eastern extent of this project due to some changes to the I-15 EIS in the project there. So this new extent will end at 1250 West and then go over to the Legacy Parkway there in Centerville. Next project, Bonneville Shoreline Trail on the west side. So this is the portion on the Oakers. I think we're all familiar up in this area with the Bonneville Shoreline that runs along the Wasatch Front. Down in Salt Lake County, it runs on both sides of the valley. They've done a new feasibility study, and this new alignment in blue reflects those changes and recommendations. Note that there are some gaps, and those gaps are portions that have been already implemented or built. So don't be worried when you see that. Actually be excited that it's getting built. And then lastly, the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, as you all know, is the only soft surface trail in our RTP, and that's just because of its regional reach and nature. It spans all the way through all of our counties across the whole region. So we put it in there, but we normally don't put in soft surface trails. Next project, this is in Bluffdale. It's a project that is moving from phase 2 to 1 at Perry Farm,
Hello?
overhead head bike crossing. The city received Federal Railroad Administration funds to eliminate a railroad crossing. To receive those funds, the project needed to be in phase 1 of the RTP, so we're moving it up in phase. I-15, Farmington to Salt Lake, and I'll cover this, the meat of the project, the roadway portions in a few slides down the road. This is a compilation of all the changes to the active transportation portion of that EIS. As you're all aware, or at least the communities in southern Davis County are aware, the study spent about a year doing walk audits and looking at connecting communities, and that resulted in 7 modifications to projects, 4 new ones that we want to sorry, Marcia. That we want to reflect in the regional transportation plan. So we've bundled those together. When Jordan sends out this presentation, you'll have the ability to click on that spreadsheet tab or the link there within this sheet, and hopefully you'll be able to click on to a spreadsheet that lists out every single one of those projects, but we didn't want to take up the whole slide here for that. You also notice when we put these into the plan, they'll have a 0 cost because they're being included as part of the I-15 Farmington to Salt Lake widening rebuild project. So they're part of the total package. Kearns active transportation plans. So we have a few active transportation plans that are making updates to our RTP. Reminder, not all projects in a local active transportation plan are in the regional transportation plan, but Hugh works really closely with the communities and UDOT to identify which projects should raise up to the regional level of the RTP. There are 4 new projects in Kearns that will be added to the regional transportation plan. Layton completed an active transportation plan recently. Not a total wholesale change, but a significant change to the RTP, 36 new projects, 5 modified, 31 new ones, including bike lanes, buffered bike lanes, shoulder bikeways, shared use paths, street crossings. You can see them all on the map there. Again, those can be accessed with the link that we'll have out and to match up the local plan with our regional transportation plan. Taylorsville did a active communities plan, total of 17 projects, 10 new, 5 modified, and 2 removed. And so we're pairing that up, again, matching their local plan with the regional transportation plan. And then finally, Walk White Cities plan has a few changes, 3 of them, including shared use paths and a street crossing to be incorporated into the regional transportation's active transportation plan layer. These next 3 projects are needs-based phasing changes only. So these don't have an effect on our fiscal constraints or air quality conformity. It's just the needs-based phasing, which would allow the projects to pursue some funding. If the projects receive the funding, we'll need to make an amendment to move the full project, the financially constrained phase of the project, and any other changes that are associated with it. We'll have to do another amendment. We'll move the project forward, but these ones are needs-based phase only. The 400 West American Spur tract extension in Salt Lake from phase 2 to phase 1. And then there's 2 projects on the track orange line, one from the University of Utah to downtown, phase 2 to phase 1, and then the other one from downtown Salt Lake to the airport, Salt Lake International Airport, from phase 2 to phase 1 as well. So those are the 12 level 1 projects. And if anybody has any questions about those, be happy to answer them. If not, we'll jump into the level 2. Looking around, I don't see any, so I'm going to move forward. All right, same thing here. 12 level 2 projects. I'll open it up for questions after, and you can see that they're spread across the region. The first project's down in Harriman. This is an alignment for the 126 South environmental study. The portion on the very east end was 3 lanes in our current plan. The study identified the need to have just that piece be 5 lanes that connects to 7300 West or the future State Route 111. So we need to amend in that portion of the project to a higher amount of lanes for that small section to match the study. Freedom Point Way is in Bluffdale. This connects the Porter Rockwell Boulevard to Pony Express. This Bluffdale City is interested in pursuing Salt Lake County corridor preservation funds and wanted to get this into the plan to do that. And it connects to the frontage road on I-15 to Porter Rockwell, so it's a good local connectivity as well for them. This is a project in South Jordan from Granville Avenue. It extends a project that we thought was already completed or would have been completed on Granville from about 102nd South to Old Bingham Highway. So we're putting that in, they've made a request to add that back into our plan in phase 1. The next set of projects, there's 6 projects coming up. They all come from the Front Runner Forward study that UTA has been working on. These are grade separated crossings that are on Front Runner and the Union Pacific Railroad. We've reached out. These aren't all of them that came out of the study, but they're the ones that we were able to reach out with local communities, verify that the community supports these projects. So I'll run through those really quick. They're high level planning, but there'll need to be some more studies done on each of these. The first project's on Hillfield and Layton, Hillfield Road on the west side there of I-15. The next project is also in Layton on Gordon Avenue. The cross there. Project on Pages Lane in West Bountiful, just east of west of the freeway, grade separated crossing there. And then one down in Salt Lake City on 17th South, and then 2 in Murray, 1 on Vine Street, and then 1 on 5900 South. And these will all, have safety improvements for vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists by, removing a crossing at a railroad. And then also it helps with not only the cross traffic, the travel times for vehicles, but the reliability of Front Runner and helping making sure that the frequencies and speeds can be met for that. So those are the 6 Front Runner project recommendations. You're all familiar with the Davis Salt Lake City Community Connector. This is a core bus route that goes from Farmington to Research Park up near the University of Utah. The study is coming to a completion. There's a very small portion that they move the alignment from 400 West to 300 West from about Beck Street to North Temple in Salt Lake City. So we're wanting to make sure we're matching that alignment so they can get their record of decision and complete their environmental process and continue to work to get that project implemented all the way down again from Farmington to through Salt Lake City. Next project is a core bus route up Big Cottonwood Canyon that would go from the Cottonwood Canyon's transit hub at the mouth of the canyon all the way up to the Brighton Ski Resort. A similar type core bus route that is part of the phase 1 for Little Cottonwood Canyon. This would just be to the canyon to the north of that. And then finally, the last project on the phase or level 2 projects is the first phase of the Point of the Mountain Environmental Assessment transit recommendation. This is a point innovative mobility zone with dedicated shuttles at the Point of the Mountain development that we didn't have in our plan. Their environmental study is coming to a completion. I think they have to go to public comment and then they'll be ready for records of decision as well. And I think the point's ready to start some development. I know the prison has been already moved and they've been working in that direction. So that is the end of the level 2 projects. Any questions with those? All right, I'm not seeing any. All right, level 3 projects, 12 projects total. You can see here there are only 6 of them captured. With I-15 from Farmington to Salt Lake, number 5 there on the list, includes 6 different changes within that package. So you'll only have 6 slides coming up. The first project on this list is the phase 2 of the Point of the Mountain environmental assessment. In the current plan, we have bus rapid transit in phase 1, and in the recommendation from the environmental assessment recommended it be light rail transit, but in phase 2. And so you can see here there are 3 different components that are changing for this project. We've got mode change, we've got phase change, and then you can see there's an alignment change just because the 2 modes are a little different in where they would run. So we're modifying all those to reflect that environmental assessment. Farmington front runner station at the Point of Mountain development. This would be a new front runner station. It's partially funded already. Total projects is about 400 million. That's paired up with some strategic double tracking from Draper to Lehigh. This project, 120 million, reflects just the portion that's in the WFRC area. Next 2 projects are in Farmington City. Comes from the Farmington Station area plan. This project is a new station stopper terminal in North Station Park that'll connect the fixed guideway innovative mobility zone to the Farmington front runner station. So you can see this is the green dot there is to the northwest of the Farmington front runner station. And you'll see in the next project here, the line that would connect that. It's envisioned that there'd be a fixed guideway or dedicated right-of-way for the project that would connect Farmington front runner station to that new mobility or the new Farmington Station stopper terminal. Obviously, I think a little bit more further studies required, but that came from, again, the Farmington Station area plan. And they're working really closely with the developers up there for that project. So those 2 projects are paired up. Now to the I-15 project. So really 2 more slides before I'm done with the projects here. The I-15 project from Farmington to Salt Lake, in our current plan, has recommended 5 general purpose lanes, and in the recommendation from the EIS is 5 general purpose lanes and an HOT lane. Our current plan had 4 general purpose and 2 HOT. And so we need to update the lane configuration that's coming out of the recommendation from the EIS. There's also quite a few changes and improvements to almost nearly all the interchanges and crossings between Farmington and Salt Lake City at 4th South. And instead of including every single change in the RTP, we're going to package them up into 3 segments within the RTP project list. And so we'll have a project that goes from Farmington to 2600 South in Bountiful and North Salt Lake. We'll have a project that goes from 2600 South to Salt Lake County line, and then the Davis County line to 400 South in Salt Lake City. So within each of those 3 segments, we'll include all of the roadway components of the I-15 EIS, including interchanges, the system interchange at I-215 and Highway 89 and I-15 in the North Salt Lake area, North Salt Lake City area, improvements to all of the interchanges. We are calling out specifically, as I showed you in level 1 projects, the active transportation projects. And that way that we leave them in there. That way, we can show where the connections are still needed outside of the EIS area. But for the most part, all the roadway projects are included in those 3 segments. As I said, there are 5 projects that we're going to need to remove. So there were in the previous plan an I-15 managed motorways. The managed motorways system is being incorporated into the project when it gets built. There was a parish lane interchange improvement, and I-215, there were 2 projects for I-215 interchange, the system interchange. One was like an initial step, and then the other one was the full interchange, and then a new interchange in Warm Springs Road in the northern part of Salt Lake City that we had in the plan. They had specific project numbers. We're making a recommendation to remove all those 5 projects. Again, capture everything in the 3 segments of I-15. This is similar to the West Davis corridor. When before it was built, we had a line. We didn't put every interchange or improvement to West Davis corridor in the plan. So that's the recommendation for I-15. And then The final project is up in Box Elder County. This would be a 2 mile of passing lanes, both north and southbound, which will help traffic efficiency and increase safety, especially related to the heavy truck traffic in the area. And I'm sure Box Elder and Brigham City can attest to that. It's 2 lanes now, and if two semi trucks get next to each other, it's like turtles passing each other. So they don't do it very fast, and they can kind of bugger up traffic a little bit. So those are the level 3 projects. Happy to answer any questions if there are any. All right, not seeing any.
Sorry, I have a question.
Oh yes, Allie.
Allie, so you said the active transportation projects were being included for the I-15 thing, or should not be included?
No, they are being included, and thank you for asking the clarification. So in the level 1 projects that I had talked about earlier, there are a handful of projects that are tied directly to the I-15 EIS, and we're putting them in as specific individual projects. So they will be added in there. We're going to put them in as when the projects are amended in eventually, they'll have a 0 cost because they're being paid for with the overall I-15 project. But we wanted to really highlight that those projects were in the plan, and I think Hugh will work with local communities as those projects move forward. It may pay for the local communities to look to implement the project on either side of the I-15 project area, because it doesn't necessarily always go to the right termini or a logical destination on each side of the study.
So we have one that we're trying to get UDOT to include.
Okay.
So who would I talk to in order to get that on your plans?
Reach out to Hugh first. And then, because Hugh's been working pretty closely, and CC me, also, I'm the I-15 kind of project liaison, but I want to make sure that we have the right set of projects. Because I think we went through the entire list of I-15 projects, and the modifications in that level 1 list were additions to what we already had in there. There were already quite a few projects in the RTP across I-15 or parallel to I-15 in the plan. Now, making sure that UDOT builds them during the process is another thing. And so I think they have a list of projects or some interactive maps that we can share with you that show exactly the detail. And Hugh and Che are really familiar with those maps, and we can make sure we get you the right information.
Okay, let's chat outside of this meeting about it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right. No other questions on the amendment list. Per our RTP amendment process, we've prepared some technical considerations for you that are similar to considerations that we use in developing the RTP itself, and they tie directly to our Wasatch Choice vision goal. So briefly cover you with those. There's a lot of detail on this slide, so I'm not expecting everybody to read everything on here. But since most of the projects were regional in scale, we didn't do technical considerations on a project-by-project basis. We did them by county. And so you can see those here. But a lot of the projects in the amendments will provide more and safer connectivity by increasing our active transportation networks, provide more connectivity across barriers like railroads and highways, and improve our transit connectivity, along with improving access to our Wasatch Choice centers. For the vehicle hours of travel, you can see here an access opportunity. We're only showing the benefits in phase 1 of the RTP. These numbers show the comparison between our regional transportation plan, the existing regional transportation plan, and this amendment. And there's pretty minor changes in comparison between those. And And then through new connections and increased connectivity, we're increasing access to jobs and education in all 4 counties. And there's a slight increase in VHT in Davis and Salt Lake counties. And then the delay decreases in both of the counties within our results. So a lot of information here. Intent here is to show that we're not just moving projects into the plan, but we look at them very closely. We work very closely with the project sponsors of the nominating community or agency, and assess, quite a bit of what needs to go into the plan, and justify it. So Barton, looking to have a motion here. I've made it super easy, put it up on the screen, and then what I can do is then kind of just go through the next steps.
Okay. All right, so are there any questions, or is somebody willing to make a motion?
Motion to approve from Steve, Roy City.
I'll second it from North Salt Lake.
Okay, and am I to understand the motion as written on the screen? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we will vote the way we vote. If a yes vote is silence and a no vote is speak up. So all those in favor, stay silent. Anyone opposed, speak up. Okay, motion passes. All right, thank you, Jory.
All right. Making sure didn't mute myself on accident. Okay. Appreciate that. Next step. So we've already met with Federal Highways and the interagency consultation team to classify the projects. We've met with Federal Highways to discuss our financial plan and the financial constraints. Brought the projects to you all here today. So that's the top line. Next step is we want to, we'll inform Regional Growth Committee about the level 1 projects. We'll ask them to review the level 2 projects, open for public comment at the meeting on March 21st, and then approve the level 2 projects at that meeting. The level 3 projects require a 30-day public comment. And so we'll ask that the Regional Growth Committee allow us to go out to a 30-day public comment period from March 22nd to April 23rd. During that time, we'll inform respective county councils of governments of the project. So in this case, it's Box Elder, Davis, and Salt Lake County COGS of the projects. And then at the May 16th meeting, so we won't come back out to the technical advisory committee. So if you're interested in these projects or the changes, look to the March 21st meeting or that May 16th meeting. We're going to ask Regional Growth Committee to review the comments that we received during our public comment period, and recommend to the Regional Council to approve the amendment. May 23rd is that Regional Council meeting. They'll also review the comments, and then hopefully approve amendment number 1 to the RTP. So Barton, that ends my item unless there are any other questions or comments.
All right. Thank you very much, Jory, and thank you everybody for participating in that. That's kind of the core thing we do here, so I appreciate it. Let's move on to the 2024 region-wide future land use map.
Hey, Barton. I think that's me. Bert Granberg with WFRC's analytics group. I'm assuming you can hear me and see my screen. Thumbs up. Okay, great. I'm going to try not to take too much time here, but in the analytics group at WFRC, we do a lot with data and mapping and of course models. Our 2 models, primary models are travel models and then the land use model. And a key input to the land use model with which we generate the regional household and job forecast are the essentially the types of development and the capacities of residential and commercial development that are in local land use plans. Since we're looking out to 2050 with our forecast, we're primarily interested in what is in the general plans. We also augment that with what's in the Wasatch Choice centers. So the boundaries and the timing of Wasatch Choice centers sort of contributes to the types of land uses and the intensity of land uses that our model is allowed to develop. We're also interested in local master plans and development agreements that aren't in those general plans. But so what we're doing in the coming months, I talked to you all a little bit in December about this. I'm following up because we've got a little survey. So spoiler alert, there's a survey link coming in a second to kind of collect some information about how best to coordinate with each city. I just rearrange my screen real quickly. So that land use model is we call it the real estate market model for the Wasatch Front, or REM. Among sort of the important inputs are housing unit inventories or existing conditions for single and multifamily use housing. We just released an update to the housing unit inventory or housing inventory explorer web map in WFRC's January newsletter. So check that out. You can also find it at maps.wfrc.org. So we've got that finished. Check, yay. And now we're working on updating what we call the generalized future land use data set, which is essentially a map of those general plans and other development that is foreseen that's kind of dumbed down into a standardized format across the region that contains the allowable types and the allowable intensities for a land use model. So that's what I'm reaching out to coordinate with you all on, is primarily is the generalized future land use layer and the update we're going to do in the next few months. Wasatch Choice Center, as I mentioned, and of course the output from all of this is the regional household and job forecast, which is used to model transportation projects and in big project environmental impact studies. It's also it's used by the Division of Water Resources. So like it's a pretty important data set for us and others. So the generalized future land use, we last updated it in 2020. This is kind of what it looks like. Types, and then dwelling units per acre is really important, and Florida area ratio, if you've got that. We last updated it in 2020. It's time to update it again because we're starting to work on our next forecast. And I'll talk about the timeline for that really quickly at the very end. So in December, I promised we'd be in touch, and this is the next step in this process. We kind of were rethinking like how we did this, and then our MPO colleagues at Mountain Land Association of Governments for the Provo-Orem area, Utah County, Wasatch and Summit, they just released a really nice compilation of general plan data, I think in December, and we're like, oh, we should just, and they did it the same way we did it in 2020. We're like, yeah, we should just do it the same way. So we're going to try to update the layer we've got and make it seamless and match up with what the work that Mountain Land has let out on. So let me just take a second and drop this link into the chat. So basically the way we're going to start this is with this little quick one-page Google form or Google survey. And we're asking you just to help us like identify who the best contact is to try and connect with general plan data in GIS format if it's available, and then other types of data about future development. So it asks best for contact. It asks a little bit about what you think you've got, how you want us to contact you, whether you'd like an in-person meeting, a virtual meeting, or you just want to send us a bunch of links and say, take a stab at it and show us what you produce, and we'll give you some feedback. I'd also ask a question about if you anticipate any updates to Wasatch Choice Center boundaries or timing. The last area, Hugh Van Wagenen, our AT planner, asked if I would ask a question for who the best contact is in your community for ATGIS data. So that's on there too. But it's a one-page form. Hoping everybody can grab that link, and we'll send it out after the meeting as well. But it should take like 3, 4, 5 minutes at the most to fill out. Okay, so the last slide I have, like my slides to work, just the timeline on the forecast. We're going to be gathering all this and standardizing the future land use plans across the WFRC urban planning area this spring, maybe into the summer. We'll publish the data set toward the end of the summer, early fall. And then we're going to have a preliminary household jobs forecast next summer. So halfway through the regional transportation planning 4-year cycle, which is earlier than we've done that in the past. And we'll come back out to you all with an interactive map that will let you review the update to the forecast, compare the new forecast to the one that was adopted in 2023. We'll take that feedback, we'll do some refinement, we'll continue to watch for new changes in land use information, in particular new projects, new kind of large scale projects. And we'll tune the forecast with the feedback, and we'll do a public comment period sometime in 2026 with the idea of locking the forecast down well before it gets adopted with the RTP in May of 2027. So we're working on a long time frame, trying to get ahead of everything. And one of the keys is connecting with these important inputs to the land use model, including your general plan information. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions. Remind you that the link is in the chat to fill out the survey, and we'll look forward to coordinating and possibly meeting with you to make sure that we've got the best information in this layer for your cities.
Any questions?
Unless there are any questions, it's back to you, Barton. Thank you.
All right. Just say this is kind of sort of the garbage in, garbage out mode. If you want good modeling and good information, you got to give them good data to start with. So, all right.
Thank you. I mean, that is absolutely true, right? The best way to complain about our work is to get us good data early in the process so you don't have to.
Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Who's talking about Utah Broadband Center Challenge process?
That would be me.
Okay.
Hi.
Rebecca.
Got someone's doing the slides for me, or I did send a PowerPoint. There we go. That's it. Thank you. Rebecca Dilge. I'm the director of the Utah Broadband Center at the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity. And I'm just giving you an update and where we are and needing your help with our funding that's coming for broadband in the state of Utah. The federal government, through the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program, has allocated over $300 million, about $317 million to the state of Utah to make sure we have every last location anywhere and everyone in Utah has access to high-speed internet. And it's a once-in-a-lifetime generational opportunity, and we need the help of the communities. I know there's a lot of people on here that have heard my spiel already, and so they can help me if I've missed anything, but I'm talking to the new communities that haven't heard about this yet. But some of them, you can turn to the next slide, we did meet with during this last year, putting together our digital connectivity plan and finding out, getting feedback from the communities based on what their infrastructure was like the availability, the accessibility is devices, laptops, computers, phones, what do people have access to, and also do they know how to use it? And then finally, the affordability. Can people access the internet? Do they have make the monthly payments or the connection fees, or pay for the devices? We want people to know how to use them safely, to be a part of modern society today. So much is done online, whether it's education, work, even accessing government programs, getting your driver's license renewed. All of it is done online. And so it's really essential. If people aren't able to participate, we're creating a huge gap. And so it's very important that we are getting access to many of the rural communities or areas where the income is low that could not do it otherwise. So what we're needing from you next, we're working on a state challenge process. This is required, but it's something that's very important to do. And it's helping us to find any misidentified or underserved or unserved locations that could be eligible for the BEAD funded projects. So we are putting together, we can go to the next slide. We're putting together a portal, or we have a portal, it's ready to go. We're just waiting for approval from NTIA, our federal overseer. It's got a map, it's got places for entities to register, to upload any locations that they know maybe are showing on the FCC map as being served, meaning they're getting at least speeds of 25 megabits per second download and 3 upload. Hey, Jory, you're still on.
Sorry, my bad.
It's okay. So if there's that is what's considered by the FCC as being served. That's a served speed. Now, for many households, even today, that's not adequate. They're using a lot more than that. And so really to future-proof this, we are going to use this funding, and it needs to meet speeds of at least 100 megabits per second download and 20 upload. And I know that maybe not everybody understands this technology and what that means and those speeds. And sometimes I don't understand it all too, but I use the analogy that when I'm coming down to Salt Lake, I'd rather be doing closer, not exactly, but closer to 100 than 25 on the freeway. And it's the same in our homes. We have a lot of devices, or if it's a wireless technology and you're having to share it with your neighbor and you get a lot of devices on there, it slows things down. So some locations on the map that the FCC has, these are all submitted by internet service providers. And so sometimes they say that they are providing these speeds and they're not, or they have coverage that they really don't have. Sometimes in neighborhoods, we have a provider that's built out, another one's come up, and there's a gap, like in a neighborhood or a block or something like this, where there is no service. So we know in a lot of the rural areas that there's many communities that aren't fully served, but even in the urban areas, here and there, we've got little donut holes or gaps that we can now reach with this funding, because otherwise they would just, the investment is just too great for any internet service provider to want to take it on. So what we're going to be doing, as I said, is this challenge portal. The communities will be an eligible entity to challenge. They'll be able to access the portal, review the map, where it's suggesting and recommending highly that the communities apply for a free license to the fabric of the map fabric is what it's called. It's from the FCC. It allows your GIS offices to be able to easily download the data or be able to upload any bulk challenges. You don't have to get the fabric license. You will have full access to the fabric if you do, and it can make it easier, this process, but it's not required. Challenges will be submitted to the relevant ISPs for a review and rebuttal. So part of this process, they will be able to say yes or no, whether or they're going to have to show and prove how they do have coverage if it is challenged that they don't. If they do rebut the challenge, the rebuttal will then pass to us, the state, and we will be the adjudicators, and then we will determine yes or no if this is actually a served or not served location. Again, if it's showing served, but it's not, we cannot use these funds to serve that household. This map will have to submit to NTIA, that's the National Telecommunications Information Association, through the Department of Commerce, U.S. Department of Commerce. If it's showing on the map it's served, we cannot use the funds for that. Okay, next. This is a little snapshot of the FCC map. It shows just kind of zoomed out locations that are showing where there's service or not service. Our map is more detailed in a lower, more granular level. But this is what we're looking for, is the unserved and underserved locations. And the next, we're also looking for community anchor institutions. So typically in cities, these are your schools, libraries, hospitals. We've added to that in any, some marginalized areas or rural areas. We're including, if there's not these type of locations in a community, that this can be considered a community anchor institution. And they also need to be able to have to their door access to 1,000 megabits per second, not just 100. It needs to be 1,000 up and down. So basically fiber optics needs to be able to get to these community anchor institutions. So on this portal, we also have a list of any anchor institution that we have identified that we don't believe currently has these speeds. Now, Utah Education Telehealth Network has done a great job in getting locations served across the state. And so our list is not as great, but if it looks like we're missing any that does not have a gig speed going to it, we need this challenged. Next. So this is the challenge process in a nutshell. The eligible challengers include internet service providers, local and tribal governments, and nonprofit organizations that serve these communities. And these on the right are the eligible challenges, the community anchor institutions, whether it's served or unserved, service locations, the availability, the speeds, latency, data caps, technology type, service type. So whether it's a residential or a business, technology type, I should mention, is like you've got fiber optics. We're looking at wireless. We're looking at unlicensed wireless. I know that gets in a little detail, nitty gritty, but if you're just know that you've got a community where a provider is saying, our citizens, our customers are getting speeds up to 100 down, 20 up, and they're not. We need that challenged. We also are going to have a speed test. So even though individuals are not eligible challengers, we are going to have a speed test where anybody can go on and in fact, they can do it right now. The portal is open at connectingutah.com, and they need to take 3 speed tests, 3 different days. So, and they also need to get their neighbors to do it. So there has to be more than just one location. We need 6 locations in like a census block group. So 3 speed tests, 3 days to make it more robust. And again, also we're looking for areas that maybe have already been awarded, not yet built, or any areas where we have providers that say we're going to build. We've been to the cities, we've talked to the communities. We have a franchise agreement in place. It's going to be built. We don't need these funds. So if you're aware of anything like that, we need to know, because even though 317 million sounds like a lot, it's not enough, to cover everybody with fiber to the home. We'll be using different technologies and just being very careful about how we use these funds to get everyone connected. Next. Our challenge process, this is the timeline. We have not opened it yet. We had hoped to have it open by now, but it's okay because we are now finally getting to the last Association of Governments to let them know about this. We need your help with this and getting the word out to the communities and organizations. But the portal is open for registration at this time. You can look at, there is a map there, but it doesn't have all the detail on it, and that will not be accessible until the portal, the credentials are given and the portal's actually open for this. During a 10-day period, it will be published with all the locations. Everyone will be able to look at it. The challenge phase will last 40 days. And then the rebuttal phase for the internet service provider, it's on a rolling basis. So if a challenge comes in on day 5, from day 5 of the challenge process, they'll have 40 days to rebut. And then we'll have about 30 days to do a final determination. Then the next step leads into the summer, and in summer, that's when we're going to be running our grant program, and all awards will need to be made 1 year after all approvals from NTIA, which will probably be next spring. Next. And if you just take a minute here, if you have a phone, you want to grab this QR code, I would please invite you to go to connectingutah.com. On that page is our plan, our 5-year plan, our connectivity, the initial proposals, and how to get the fabric license. There's slides there, how to do it. It takes about 2 weeks. So we encourage you, if you haven't done it and you'd like to do it, start on it now. There's a summary of the challenge process that probably explains it better than I just did, and the challenge process, how to get into the portal, and the speed tests that anybody can take is there. We've done some webinars on the portal, how to access it, and those are already on the website there. So those were done in January, and they can be accessed there. And I think, was there a question that came in on chat, or it was just a comment? Oh, somebody's talking about me.
I think Bert was supporting.
Thank you, Bert. Appreciate it. Yep. Yeah, that's the help we need. Thank you for sharing that word. And here's our contact information. And
All right.
and this is it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
All right, we're going to get to the end of our meeting here. We did send out a survey on this meeting and appreciate your participating on that. Let's see, I can share that, or somebody have that, the results on that. Let me see if I can share my screen. So this was the results of the survey. We just wanted to see how you want to use this meeting, some topics that we want to talk about. We got input on that. Additional topic ideas. Again, we can use this meeting how we want. I know we got some good information. I learned a lot today just on things like gravel pits that I hadn't learned before. But if there's things that we want to talk about, we want to bounce things off other people. There's some topic ideas on the screen there that you had said you were interested in. If there's other things, put them in the chat or let us know on that. We also talked about future meetings, and this was an in-person meeting until we got COVID and we went to all virtual, and so we kind of asked whether you want to keep it virtual or go in person, and looked like there's still interest in doing in-person meetings for some of the meetings, so but not all, mostly virtual. So we're planning on doing our September meeting live and in person, and the rest virtual. So anything that anyone would like to bring up on those topics, or particular things you'd like for future meetings to bring up?
Hey Barton, this is Hugh with WFRC. Sorry to interject, but seeing as active transportation was a top 5 topic, do you mind if I give a quick update on the Utah Trail Network and BR Bikeways? Thank you. I'll be brief. For those that aren't familiar, UDOT's Trails Division came out with their ranked project list for the projects they're considering funding in this first round of funding through their $45 million ongoing fund. Just put the link in the chat if you want to take a look at that ranked list. This is not what's been suggested for programming. That will come in the coming months. Recommendations to the Transportation Commission, who will ultimately make that decision. But as a reminder, we talked to you all about the Utah Trail Network and the Beehive Bikeways in our fall workshops. And Utah Trail Network's not going to build everything that we need to get people around comfortably in your cities. And so we got a ton of great feedback in those workshops. We are sifting through it and going to be coming back out to you with a refined network of what the Beehive Bikeways looks like. Because again, we got a ton of great feedback and we want to come back out to you to see if we've distilled it in the right manner to move forward with your communities. So stay tuned for that. Again, have a look at the Utah Trail Network project ranked list if you haven't. And if you have any questions, always feel free to reach out. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Hugh. I opened that up and that's great. Okay. Do we have any other things that we need to bring up before we adjourn? Okay, sounds like I've done the biggest thing you can do as a chair is to end on time. So thank you, everybody. Our next meeting will be April 17th. See you then.
Thanks, Barton.
Thanks, everyone.